Hey, our DVD collection, PWND underscore U underscore IN underscore MK, or PwnMK here again. This week's collection spotlight was the 5 most philosophical films. Um, I I chose a lot of films based on not only my feelings about them, but their sort of philosophies last week when we were doing 5 favorite films. So I tried to pick different films this week. Um, anyway, what are we gonna start with here? Let's start with the cheap and easy one. I've chosen Zombieland, right there, philosophical film. Some of you may argue that it's a lot more of a it's a lot more visceral, not as thinky of a film, but the philosophy of the film is the thing that I like the most about it, which is which is to say that generally when we see a zombie film, there are two sorts of zombie films. There are what most people consider to be the right kind of zombie films, where the movie isn't so much about zombies as being the enemy as much as it's about people being the enemy, where it's sort of it's about sort of the horror of man and the things that we do to each other, and then sort of the wrong kind of zombie movie where the zombies are the bad guy. They're just sort of, just sort of the horde. Zombieland is neither of those. In Zombieland, it's sort of the philosophy of Zombieland as a film, as the original sort of TV show idea is that a zombie apocalypse is, a thrill ride. It's a theme park. It's Chuck E. Cheese and Disney World all at once for those of us that sort of just would love to live in a world with less people, with no rules and responsibilities. Sort of a fend for yourself kind of a, it's post-apocalyptic without the infrastructure damage kind of a thing. There's a lot of that's sort of the thing that maybe some older filmmakers don't fully understand, is that a lot of us want the zombie apocalypse theoretically, because we want to live in a world without rules, where you're just sort of free to do what you want, with the only sort of minor issue that also there are zombies around. And it's that philosophy that that want for a world without rules that sort of that makes it so successful. That there's the reason that it was so successful and so beloved, because it finally gave us an example of that world, just sort of that fantasy land. All right, that was too long on that. We'll move on here. We'll do Watchmen. I've got my beloved Ultimate Cut here with the Tales of the Black Freighter in it and everything. Oh, love it. Anyway, both the film, I think the film even more than the comic book, with the changes that were made story-wise, promotes the central theme of Watchmen, which is that sort of people are shit. Watchmen, it really is about, to me at least, the horror of man kind of a thing. It's, people are terrible, and the only thing that brings people together more than love is hate. It's an amazing commentary on the world that is even more relevant today in sort of a post 9/11 world. If you can think back to some of the sort of racism and violent sort of thinking that was happening around that time, that's just sort of, that's how the world is. It's full of terrible, hateful, violent people, and there's not, that's the world that we have to live in. It's that's its philosophy about life, is that everyone is a shit and out for themselves, and I kind of agree with it for the most part. It's sort of the world that I see. So that's the reason I like that one. I could have used other examples, but Watchmen is probably my favorite example of it. We'll talk about Inglourious Bastards is sort of the next one. Really, really deep film. I could have used Starship Troopers for this one for the same sort of philosophy, but it has a lot to say about sort of media sensationalism and nationalism and patriotism. Sort of saying, that that there are no shades of gray in terms of right and wrong. That justice has no borders, and that you have to sort of be careful with your sort of rhetoric, because you could wind up saying things or doing things that would make less sense if you were not being so specific. I mean, the examples in Inglourious Bastards that are super obvious are the things like the film within the film of the, I can't think of what it's called right now. Nation's Pride, right? The sort of, we're watching a film about, they're going to kill them some Nazis, and then, we feel good about it because Nazis are evil, period, and then they sort of have this Nation's Pride film, and we see the Nazis, cheering about their, soldier that killed so many Allied soldiers, and oh, look at this film where, we're like, yeah, because Allies are, the enemy, and it sort of has to make us really think about, who we are and whether or not, that sort of, I think some people would probably use The Thin Red Line as their example for this, but I've never seen it. I know that I should watch it, but I haven't, and maybe it'll become my go-to example for this. But it's that sort of philosophy of we are all people before we are, Americans or Germans or, whatever we are. We have to sort of look at that and remember that and keep that in mind, because it's easy to sort of let that hate into your heart and, that sort of a thing. So, that was that one. I've got two more here, but they're very similar all over. I have Fight Club and I have The Anarchist Cookbook. None of you have seen The Anarchist Cookbook. If you have, you're lying generally. But same kind of idea in both of them. Fight Club, obviously, I'm sure a bunch of people have posted this already and are going to continue to post it. Fight Club is sort of a, don't blindly follow sort of a thing. Do what you want to do. Think for yourself. Live your own life. Don't let others tell you how to live your life. I mean, The Anarchist Cookbook is the same way. It's about a, person who is a joiner, that joins things, wants to be a part of something bigger. And, the thing that he joins tends to be sort of full of shit, and nobody has their life any better figured out than he does. And, it's that same sort of idea of live your life, don't let others dictate to you how you'll live your life. And I'm sure I have more films that sort of meet that same criteria, because it's something that is very important to me. It's a philosophy that I absolutely am a part of. So something that I really, it's something that I corely believe. So when I see it in a film, I obviously will enjoy that film because it's telling me that I'm right, which is silly. But all right, that's it. So look forward to any comments or discussion below. Maybe you don't agree with some of these things. Maybe you're like, yeah, no, that's a thing. That's it. I will see you guys next Spotlight, I guess.